Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
What up, what up, what up? It is Esports with Emrick. We are back after a very short hiatus. We got a little into it last Friday. Took Saturday off. I think it was Saturday. And then there was no Sunday, Monday content as per usual. But we are back. We have a couple 4-game slates to kind of tide us over because there is going to be a rather long break that we're going to have to endure with the Chinese New Year coming up. So that's going to be 2 weeks. No LPL. That'll be tough, but we do have some plans for the content. The Friday Hangout stream may continue. Any type of wacky and weird food challenges that you might have, maybe we can do that. And we can talk about some other aspects of League. I mean, we still will have the LEC to talk about. We'll have the LCS to talk about probably within that time frame. And one of the other things that I'm going to do to try and fill some of this weekly content is to highlight a couple of the different teams that I think are projecting well to make it to EU Masters from some of the kind of the primary regions. So we're talking about the Prime League. We're talking about the LFL, the Super League, Ultra League. So some of those more powerhouse leagues that have some good teams. As many of you may know, I do follow those leagues. As many of them as I can, and I like to bet on them. And so maybe we'll have some content possibly earlier in the day, maybe twice per week. I'm not really sure exactly how that's going to work going over some of that. It's been a little bit of a rough sledding after a very, very good first week. Today, in the last few days, it just feels like every single favorite that I bet on loses and every underdog that I bet on also loses. So essentially, it's an easy way of saying every bet that I make loses. But nevertheless, we push through these. The hot streaks will come. It'll be okay. Nevertheless, let's go ahead and jump right into the LPL LCK slate. Let me put my screen up here for you guys. Let me grab the comments. Yo, Iron Berserker, nice to see you. Nice to see you. Let's talk about this first game that we have at 3 o'clock. We've got Gen G against the Guangdong Freaks. This is not necessarily a game that I'm super excited about. I think that you can possibly take some pieces out of this Gen G team in DFS, but from a betting standpoint, minus 800 is just a little bit too steep for me. The minus 1.5, minus 170, probably not something that I'm too interested in either. As we take a look at some of the bets within this, we do want to pay attention first and foremost to the fact that it's a 22.5 kill over under, making this game relatively unexciting in a lot of ways. Now, this might seem as though it is a, I don't know, someplace that you want to bet the over. And I certainly think that there are plenty of, scenarios and outcomes where Gen G and, KF go ahead and beat this over. I just don't know how many times it's going to happen in the series. And one of the things is when you're paying this like minus 115, like you do on Bovada as an example, if you can find a book that gives you even money or even plus money, it kind of changes the whole dynamic of it. But at that minus 115, if you're going to bet 2 games out of the series, you need to hit both of them. And I don't have confidence that this game goes to 3-3, first of all. You've got a minus 220 on under 2.5. So you'd have to have the confidence that you're going to hit it in both games. And I just don't have that. It's been something that's happened several times to me in terms of wagers that I've made that I've missed, and that being a reason for it. So probably going to stay away from this. Not really interested in the spread. When it comes to like first blood, first inhib, first dragon, all of these things, they just don't. There's no value here. So I'm probably going to steer clear of this one overall. I don't know if I agree with you on that. We'll get into that, but just to give you reference, I have this projected at 22 kills. It's just kind of a medium whether Gen G wins or KF wins. So let's go ahead and then pull up the other series from the LCK. All right. Also, 22.5 kill total. This is DRX versus Fredit Brion. This is a game of a team that, we had kind of counted out for dead. We thought had some high hopes with DRX coming into the season. A lot of people drafted them pretty aggressively in best ball, thinking that, the team that they were putting around Piosik this year was going to be a vast improvement on the one last year. And, when you looked at the LCK as a whole, it looked pretty wide open aside from the top three spots. So there was a lot of optimism that this DRX team would be the team that could kind of slide in there with some of the pieces that they had. That was just not the case. And it was not the case in such a fantastic way that they just got smoked in all of their first three series. Brion, on the other hand, is a team that historically just seems to just be right there. They sometimes can pull off an upset, but oftentimes they get swept. And, when you least expect it, they come out and knock off like Damwon last year. And I'm sure that they're going to have some type of signature win this year. Whether they beat DRX in this series or not, I don't think it's a signature win. Vice versa, I don't think it's one for DRX. It's a nice step in the right direction if they do. As you can see, this is kind of a pick 'em. We got -115 on both of them. The +1.5, -1.5, not any type of odds that I want. And then we got the 22.5 kill total, which again seems pretty on point for these two teams. So, look, there's not a ton of value here. The thing that I guess if you were going to take a stab at something, Brion last season were just absolutely almost automatic at getting first dragon. It's just the way that they played the game. They drafted Callista a lot, and that gave them that early bot pressure and allowed them to go ahead and secure that first dragon, which they did at a ridiculous rate, even against better teams. So if I was going to take a stab at something, maybe I'd take a couple, first dragon, map 1, 2, and 3, kind of take it from there. Yeah, I mean, it's not as simple as that to me. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. I know Iron Berserker's talking about his kill totals here with LNG and FP. I think it's a little bit higher than that. Yeah, I mean, it's an oversimplified way of doing it, just going by the combined kills per minute. It does take a lot of things out of, again, it's a basic way of looking at it, and it's not terrible. But I don't know if I necessarily trust it for certain situations. I'll give you an example. Last night, my projections had all of those games going under, and I think more than half of them went over. Because what it sometimes doesn't account for is the situations in which those teams are going to exceed. I know a lot of you have heard me talk about when bad teams play bad teams, sometimes you just get these huge out of character kill totals. And I think that's kind of what you saw in some of those games. It's just, bad teams versus bad teams and people not closing, fiestas being had. So, the other turn to that is good teams versus good teams. Now, there are some good teams that are very conservative, and when they play other good teams, they don't try and force the issue. And then there are teams that when they play other good teams, think of like G2 in the past years. G2 and Rogue is a good example, or Mad Lions. And I know we're talking about Eastern leagues here, not Western, but those type of teams like to skirmish, and they like to do it even more against teams that were very good. So that, that's what that doesn't take into account necessarily. I appreciate the shout out. Yes. Look, DRX versus Bros, bad team versus bad team. When we look at these two teams and we look at kind of their totals, and I know that this is a little bit small on the screen, we're going to have to go to Zoom, and we're going to bring this up to like 150, right? That looks a little bit better. Let's take a look at DRX. So, I guess the concern that I have is if you are betting Bro, maybe Bro can have a good game, right? Maybe they can get some kills. Because when you look at what DRX, this isn't against DRX. This is obviously against somebody else. We'll have to figure out who that necessarily is. This happens quite a bit when I'm putting that in. I think that was T1. So when we look at this right here, you got 14s, 15s, 17s. This 23 is kind of out of character, and I think this 19 is a little out of character. When we think of Gen G, when we think of T1, maybe not historically, but at least within this split and this season, I'm thinking of two teams that push the pace a little bit more. T1 a little bit uncharacteristic from what they are in past splits and even what they are within the LCK. So those I take with a grain of salt, and I think that the 14, the 15, the 17, and the 14 are numbers that are a little bit more indicative of what we're going to actually see them give up in a loss. And when you take a look at Bro, what they end up doing in kills and wins, you just don't have a lot of data. A 7-kill win really doesn't tell you anything. When there's only 3 of them, you have to take it into account, but we got 15 to 17. So, let's go ahead and just average those numbers out. We're about 16. I think that that's kind of a fair number. It's in between 17 and 15. I think we can all agree on that. And then when you look at kind of what DRX does, it's the same type of situation. We're like 14, 15, 16, somewhere in that range. So let's just say 16. So if Bro gives up 16 kills or gets 16 kills, DRX gives it up. How many kills then is DRX going to get? If they get the 9, I mean, you're at a 25. If they get an 8, they're above it. So maybe this does go to a 23, 24, but it's not off enough that I think in my projections. I have them at I don't have them at 15 or 16. I have them at more like 15, 15 and a half, I think, because you are looking at a 2-game theory here. So again, do I think it can go over? Yes, I think one of the games will probably go over. If they play 3, most definitely one will go over. It's just a matter of picking which one it is and making that specific bet. When it comes to DFS, these numbers right here are not necessarily things that want to scare us off, but they are red flags. I mean, if you think back to last split, not in this league, but let's think of a team like TSM. TSM, incredibly boring to watch, would absolutely scale the game, a lot like some of these LCK teams, and they'd end it with 13, 14, maybe 15 kills or more if you're lucky. But almost every one of those kills was a team fight around an objective. They weren't skirmishing on making dives under towers or finding each other in each other's jungles, and if they did, they would retreat and not really necessarily fight. So when they did fight, every one of those kills would be an assist to almost everybody on the team. That type of kill participation, even in low kill games, can yield you some pretty good fantasy points in most situations. Let's see. Got a couple shout outs here. Yeah, Bro. Hey, look, man. Bro is always, like I said, going to be super low ownership. And they are going to, win a slate or two. Believe me, I chase them all the time. If you want to do it tonight, I might. I commend you. There is the problem that sometimes it feels like you're going to go broke trying to chase Bro. It happens. Let's get back to that. Okay, so that's kind of covers the LCK. Going over into the LPL, we've got 2 games, far more interesting. I don't think anybody is surprised by that. We have Weibo Gaming. Man, these guys let me down the other night. I had a ton of one-off Hong Kong, and I had some pretty sick lineups. In fact, I think I end up like 4 or 5xing if Wong Fong has just like a normal game. In fact, if I just didn't one-off Wong Fong and I played Gumiasi in a normal 4-3 construction, I 3 or 4x my entries. So fuck me, right? So, when one offing goes wrong, I guess is a way to look at it. So these are a little bit higher, 26.5, pretty even in terms of the odds. Looks like they're favoring Weibo just a little bit here. Not anything substantial. I mean, look, this team has a way of finding wins and does not need to kind of strong arm you to do it. They're going to play the map. They're going to play the objectives. They're going to look for their opportunities. This is a way that they've played for years now. Don't get it twisted, though. They can pop off. And I feel like they do that more often when we don't expect them to. Now, this is just narrative-based analytics right here, or analysis, I should say. not analytics. It's analysis, narrative based. This is just what I feel. I have nothing to back this up. I feel like if I went back and looked at their wins, I could prove this, and then they let us down. And they almost did against anybody's legend. But, Victory 5's riding high here. They've got a couple nice wins. They're everybody's darling. I think they'll probably be in contention for one of the higher owned. But I think there's some still respect for Weibo. So maybe they won't be the highest owned. I don't know. I don't know how people are feeling. It's a possibility. But I don't want any part in this betting either. I'm not making a lot of wagers on the LPL LCK tonight. I'm going to play some DFS, and that's kind of where I'm going to let it ride. If you have a lean one way or the other, go for it. But I just don't think that there's a ton of value. I have this projected around 26 kills, so pretty fair there. We go to the other one. We've got this LNG and then FPX. Take a look. Yeah, okay. So we've got the Shy versus Rich. Rich solo kills him 4 times. Hey, man, look, it could happen. I did bump up his kill participation a little bit in my projections. Gumi kill participation is bad. Yeah, and that's why I had it. And it didn't work. So it was smart, but it was too smart. That's the problem, especially sometimes in those smaller field contests on a 5-game slate. One-offing, it just get caught into it. I got caught into all of our talk about it being the meta. I got caught into Gelati getting a first for it in a much bigger contest. And, I made a misstep. Look, it's hindsight's 2020. It happens. No big deal. It can look. So there have been games where the Shy's play style, like if he gets Quinn or just decides to take over, the team lets him do something like that. The guy's going to pop off, and he could be just the highest scoring guy in the slate. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that happens with this team. I don't think that happens with this meta. So I wouldn't bank into that. In fact, we're going to talk about possible one-off situations that we can put into the top lane with a couple builds. I've gone ahead and taken a look at them. Yeah, bad influence, man. Bad influence, absolutely. Beishan over Clid. I can't agree with that, man. I can't agree with that at all. I thought Beishan's had his moments. He's looked okay, but I definitely think Clid is going to be an improvement for this team. Whether or not he picks up the kill participation for the team or just the kill involvement remains to be seen. But realistically, this team probably can't go any lower than it has in some games this year. He's a much better jungler than Beishan, even though he's probably past his prime. Only a master should mess with the dark arts. Yeah, man, I'm a 4-3 guy, 3-4 guy. I used to one-off teams, and maybe we'll one-off a top laner. We'll do that. Just that's what Baby Goat did. That's what that won him $5,000. In fact, I think almost everybody that made an appearance on that show on Friday, with the exception of Gugs, has taken down a GPP or been close to it. I think, if I'm not mistaken, so Baby Goat just took one down. Kevin took one down. I took one down 2 days ago, but split it. It wasn't as nice. And then Moose took second, but I think he won more than everybody else. So his second was better than our first. So it's a good influence. If you want to get on Fridays, if you get on the Friday show and there's a Saturday slate, you're sure to bink. That's what we're going here. The 4-1-1 game. Yeah, dude. Yeah, for sure. Let's do it. The one-off New. Yeah, I mean, that's sharp. Look, I put New in a lot of builds, and I think I even maybe one-offed him, but I'm probably the wrong way. I did think that he was a guy, and we'll talk about if there are people like this on this slate, but just in general, there are certain players that you think of that have a bad reputation, whether they've had a couple of bad games, whether they have bad stats. It doesn't mean that they can't pop off. Just like anything else, you're looking for that ceiling level performance. And even though that median level performance is not what you're looking for, it's not always what you're projecting off of in a GPP. So playing a guy like New, and recently there was somebody else, man, I can't remember. Oh, like a guy like Fofo is an example. The Fofo Captain Day. He's not the guy that you want to captain on BLG. You probably want to captain Doggo. But if you captain Fofo, he has a good game. You can pair him with Rookie. Great situation right there. Shark Tank. Yeah, if you got this Shark Tank, that's a great Shark Tank Fridays. Come, you pitch your lineup. You pitch the new meta, you pitch the one-off, and we'll tell you if it's a good one. I like it. But back to this game right here. Again, I don't think there's a ton of value. I mean, if you have a strong lean, and I'm sure that some people do, I know some people are LNG truthers, and rightfully so. They've looked fantastic, if not kind of, I don't know. I don't even know what the word is that I'm looking for. They haven't been super bloody. They've been shit. I don't even know the word. It's right there. It's in my head. But nevertheless, and FPX have been the same thing. Both of these teams have good quality wins. When we take a look at their kill deaths for the spring, we go over here to the LPL. Yeah, we talked about that. So we're going to be doing some ERL shows probably just to fill the content, fill the void. There are a couple other things we can do. Maybe we can do, a Gug's fitness workout. I mean, we saw the push-ups. That was super cool. So we'll see. But, hey, as we proceed, FPX right here, we can see they're a little bit of a mixed bag. This is a team that does give up some kills, even when they win. Not a ton, but enough that, makes their opponents kind of interesting. Because if they beat them, even just one game in a best of 3, that other team probably has more of a ceiling level performance in their 2-1 win over FPX than others do. Because FPX does tend to die a lot when they lose. Small sample, but 16, 16, 23. I can't do the math in my head, but I think that's right around 18 or 19. Nevertheless, the problem, I guess, that you have is you look at these kind of kill totals from FPX, 12, 14, 13, nothing exciting there. 10, 10, 18, really not exciting. That 30 is super attractive, but if you remember how that game looked and how they got to that 30 total, it wasn't something that's really replicatable on a regular basis. What I would say is going back to the data that we do have from this FPX team, which isn't a ton, and we go back into the maths here, again, not a regular split, not something that necessarily matters, but these guys are competitors. They are trying to play. They did play some big teams. This was very par for the course. They had a lot of games. I think out of their 6 wins, it looked like this. This is exactly what it looked like. You'd have 1 or 2 pop-off games that were in the 30s, and then the rest were super low. So it does bring their average to a weird spot. I think it artificially brings it down to your combined kills per minute point earlier, Iron Berserker. I do think that this team probably, averages somewhere between 15 to 17 kills in wins at the end of the season. When we go and take a look at LNG, they're somewhere. There they are. We don't have a lot to work off of. So very limited in terms of their losses. So, they're averaging 17, but 11, 14, 12. There's a lot of these low kill wins. This one right here against IG, I don't think IG is very good. I think that's something that we've learned. There was hopes for them. Maybe they'd be this middle of the pack team. Maybe they'd be a team that can contend for that bottom playoff spot. I don't think that's the case. I think this team's going to be bad. It's going to be one of the worst teams. I don't know, are they worse than Thunder Talk by the end of the year? They certainly weren't at the beginning, and that gave us some hope. But I think they're just kind of a step above them. But a 17-4, a 12-6, 15-4, 18-6 against relatively bad teams. WE has its moments. Against RA, I think this was a little bit of a surprise. But a 14-14, 11-3, they are just rolling teams. And Up tends to be just a little bit more of a up-tempo, high-kill team. This was their first series together. This is LNG, in my opinion's first kind of what are they really going to be like in terms of a kill total against a good team. I think we believe that RA is a good team. I believe that they're a good team. But I don't think that they have been a team over the last year, 2 years, that you can really judge teams' performances against them and then say this is what's going to apply to other teams, because they just play the game a little bit different than a lot of the other teams within this league, within this region. did he automate? I mean, I don't know. It auto mod you for Shark Soup. If you're a mod, you're a mod. I don't know, man. I don't know. Well, hey, that's good for the CS:GO people. I'm not one of those. SOFM 62 point upside, baby. Absolutely. Well, let's hop into this and let's take a look at the slate. So let's talk about this from a cash game perspective first and foremost. I think the number one team that we can look at and feel the safest about, and somebody can tell me that I'm wrong. Give me 1 second here, but I believe it's going to be Genji. So if we take Genji and we pair them with, let's say, Weibo Gaming, what do we get? Get an Angel Captain that's pretty attractive, 528. This is off of projected points, 2-1. If we go to a ceiling projection, which is a 2-0 series, we're looking at 610. So that's a pretty attractive score right there, 610. Now let's take Genji and put it over in Victory 5 because I'm not sure that Weibo is such a favorite that we need to kind of put them in as chalk. I think you could play either of these teams as a kind of a chalky cash team. I think they are going to take their ownership away from each other, but we're at 615. We're playing a PP God captain. I don't know if I really liked that as much. And this is just a byproduct of the kind of the ownership, or not the ownership, but the projection on Weibo. And we'll take a look at that in a moment. So we're at 615. That's a little bit higher. Again, this one was an Angel Captain, 610. I would say that this is going to be able to hit higher numbers above and beyond this projection more often because of an Angel Captain and pairing it with Chovy. But let's check out FPX. And Genji, we're at 612 with an LWX Captain. I will tell you what, this looks super attractive. I really do like this team here. Maybe that's a GPP team. And then you've got LNG, Genji. This one is a Livmo Captain, 619. So these are all relatively similar. I think that, if I had to say my favorite with this would have been that Genji Angel Captain with Weibo Gaming. But we have other options. So let's take a look at Weibo and LNG. What do we get there? We get a light captain. Look, this is a super attractive lineup right here. I think this is fantastic. I don't know if this is a cash game lineup, but I like this in GPP. And I'm going to show you something that you can do in a GPP as well. I think you can do this. And we were talking about one-offs. And I think that, this comes out a little bit lower, but I like this a lot. I think this is pretty interesting. You still get the kind of the strength with Wang Feng. You get the Weibo Gaming. I mean, if you had a lean one way or the other, I think you can fit in DRX or Frederick Brion as a team. I don't know. Let's take a look. We've got 800, 5,600. Yeah, you could fit any of these guys in, either of these teams. I don't know if it's any better than the Weibo Gaming. I think that you're assuming that they pick up one game, maybe two against Victory 5, if that's the case. And that's the only way that you're playing that team there. Yeah, absolutely. He is a savage. And not only that, I haven't projected lower than some of the other tops today. And, it might just be a kind of a team total thing. But if you look at kind of what he's done throughout this 4 series, you've got that last one at 53.5, which seems to kind of stand out. And then you've got this 95.16. And of course, you guys can't see this unless you have magnifying glasses on. But you can see here, and let me do this. back on the screen so you can see me. That's a 660. What about, and I think this is more popular, this is what I'm leaning towards more so in cash. I do feel like Victory 5 is just a slightly better team. You get some type of kind of weird build here, but at 664, again, this looks really good in, I think this looks pretty good in a lot of situations, maybe in a GPP. Let's take a look at something here. Can we do this? I'm guessing I can't do something like this. No? Okay. Well, that explains that. Can we do a chaotic captain? No. Okay. So we are left with what we have right here. 664. I think that's a pretty interesting lineup. A little bit out of the ordinary. And then, what do we do here? So this is another build. You've got I like this one too. This one looks great. 659. And I think this one looks good too. So there's a lot of combinations, a lot of places that you can go. I'm not necessarily sure that any of these stand out to me as a fantastic cash game. I do believe that Gen G gives you a little bit of safety that some of these other teams don't necessarily have. Maybe this isn't just a good cash slate. I mean, maybe that's kind of what it boils down to. We've got a guy that plays a little bit more cash than me. He should be joining us in about 5 to 10 minutes. Just sent me a message that he was wrapping something up. We'll go ahead and bring him in, and we'll close out the show with that. But let's take a look at a couple of things here. When we are looking at how these guys are scoring out, one that was surprising to me was Morgan. Morgan projects pretty well in comparison to everybody else. So he's the second here. We've got FPX, Jalahu, based off of kind of his kill participation and kill share within the team. Now, look, that might change with Klid over Bayshon. So, keep that in mind. Then we've got Tarzan leading the pack here. Karsa. Frederick Pion is actually coming in pretty decently. Got Rookie off the back of some monster performances. Donby, Angel. This is where kind of Frederick Brion falls off. We've got Lava way down there at the bottom. Got Henna way down there at the bottom. And then we've got PB God Live Mode Delight way down there at the bottom. So I guess what this is trying to tell you is if you're trying to find a place for some type of value, I guess, on Frederick Brion, and if you did want to put them in a stack, it's trying to get the two kind of the jungles in there, or maybe like a jungle captain, maybe with like Tarzan. So what does that look like? I don't know if that makes any sense, but okay. So that's 657. This feels too cute, though. This feels way too cute to do something like that at 654. I don't know. I don't know what you guys think. That one just doesn't. I mean, when you can get the light captain over the Tarzan captain, this makes a lot more sense. When we take a look at why is Bro, why is Morgan kill share, kill participation? Is there? I'm boggled here. I don't get it. Doesn't make any sense. His kill participation is terrible. His is better. Why is Lava? Whatever. All right. So that's kind of where we're at with this slate. I mean, what kind of questions? Does anybody have any type of questions here? Do you want to run anything? I know I haven't really sent out the projections to a lot of people today. They are posted in the esports department chat. I can send them to you privately if you'd like them. I can send you the CSV so you can upload it. A couple things. When we look at this game, and we can go by these one by one, you think that jungle captains are dead. I would be I'd be on board with you there. I don't think that this is the meta that is conducive to that. You're seeing a lot of Lee Sin. You're seeing a lot of Xin. You're seeing probably, Hakram come into this. You got Viego. These guys are just not built right now to carry the games consistently. You're going to get those Marcoon kind of pop-off games where the jungler just somehow manages to get every single one of the kills, but I don't think that is going to be consistently where it is. So if you can avoid it, if you can get a mid captain, or if you can ideally get the ADC captain, you're just getting that jungle captain to be different. And the only reason that you're getting that to be different is because you're in the $10,000 main, $15 GPP, 10,000 to first. Yeah, okay, so Karsa might be okay. Let's talk about that, though. So if you're going to play Karsa as a captain, who are you playing him with? So if you're playing Victory 5 with FPX and you're playing a Karsa captain, it means that you're forcing yourself to play Clid, and we can, have arguments about whether or not Clid is a good fantasy scorer. I mean, maybe he wasn't so much on Gen G, but was that a byproduct of Gen G, the way that they played in the LCK? Remains to be seen. Let's just assume that he's a fine scorer. But that means now you can only play one of either Rookie or Gory, and you can only play one of either Foddick and LWX. You play him with LNG, and I think that this is probably one of your better teams to do it because Tarzan has had some of those games. But now you're leaving off one of the two carries from Victory 5, or one of the two carries. It's the equity that you get from that position that you're losing with the jungle captain when you just don't need to. Like, why go with a Tarzan captain or a Karsa captain when you have this right here at 664? If you go with Tarzan captain, your projection ends up being a 661. This is a really cute kind of lineup that you can put into a GPP, like a large one, but you don't want this in cash. You don't want this in any of the single entries. That just doesn't seem like it's going to have the same type of upside, even if the projection is similar. And then if you went with a Karsa captain, where does that come out to? A 659. So it's pretty close, but I don't know. Like, you have Light now, and you're missing out on Foddick, who could just absolutely blow up as well. Okay, let's take a look at that. So if we do this right now, we got a PP God captain is what it pops up. But you're saying if I get a Karsa captain, this is something that I can do? It's not saying that I can. B5, LNG, and Genchi. Okay, I see what you're saying. So you're not saying just the two, but you're saying, like, go with a Karsa captain. Let's go with like a Dorn. I mean, he's pretty expensive. Maybe we can't do that, but we go Karsa. What do? We go Tarzan. Got to go, I think, Rookie. I mean, you could go Chovy if you want, but Rookie's a little less expensive. Who's the highest projected here? We go Light. We go Sup. Yeah, Livmo, and then Team. We're at 5,300. We can't do that, but if we go with Rich, and then you're saying, like, what, a Gen G team, something like that. Or, yeah, I mean, so again, this is a good large field GPP type of play. I don't know if this plays well in the 333. I don't think this plays well in the 100, the 50, any of those smaller. I think you're just getting too cute. I mean, look, if you think LNG is worthy of having 3 members on that team, you know, you probably think that LNG's team slot, I mean, just to be safe, probably scores a fair amount of points. I guess I will say that I do feel if I am one-offing a team, I'm more often going to do that with a team like T1, team like Gen G. But, you know, I guess my concern would be Gen G wins this game a little bit too easy, a little bit too quick. doesn't pick up all 11 towers, maybe picks up 7 in one of those games, doesn't even need all of the Drakes. We don't go to an Elder. We don't get a Baron. We don't want the Elder. We want him to end before then. But some of those other residual points that the teams pick up, we don't end up getting. And, this Gen G team, when it comes to some of the team stats here. First Blood, 50%, 37%. I mean, you want them to pick up those First Bloods if they're doing that. And that's almost why this, the T1 and Nongshim one-offs really work really well, because they're both in those 70%. If they're playing a team like Brion, who obviously his team slot does not necessarily work well now that we've kind of looked at this, you're missing out on that First Blood. So that's a spot there. But let's shed some light into what somebody who plays a little bit more cash. You guys know him from the Discord. You know him from the show. The number 1 esports player of this year, not last year. We've got Nathan. Nathan, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing, couldn't do better. Doing all right. I'm getting dusted in NBA DFS as normal, but that's regularly scheduled programming.
That's why you've got to help us figure out where you're going to go in cash in these high stakes to, make up for this NBA DFS. Like, look, we know you're playing dogs. You're probably playing the Freaks with FPX and a one-off DRX team slot.
I do like the Freaks a little bit. I'm not gonna lie here. They are an interesting spot for sure. But I just put the article over on Rotoballer. It's like a very, very quick article, like a few sentences on each game, but I can just go over my thoughts here. I think cash is a really interesting spot. You're definitely forced to play Gen G in cash. Like, you can't not. If you decide not to play them in cash, I don't know what to tell you. Probably shouldn't be playing cash. They're the biggest favorite on the slate, and if they win and you don't use them, you're pretty much just really at a inconvenience, really at a fault there already. But I think that people are gonna go and try and play Gen G and LNG. And I haven't looked at pricing, but I'm just looking at the team pricing right now on the screen you got right there. And it does seem like it's pretty impossible to get.
Gen G and LNG, this is kind of what you're looking at right there with the Levmo captain.
Yeah, you're getting like support captains, maybe a top captain. I'm like, so, and that's gonna be generally, like, in a lot of cases, the statistically correct way to play it. But I really don't like it. And I think you're going to be very happy with what I want to do in cash. But what do you think I want to do in cash? You're going to be happy about it.
What do you mean? Like, that I'm going to be happy about it? Like, look, so when I don't play a lot of heads up. So when I play cash, I play winner take all. So I can afford to be yeah. And I think the obvious build in those, I think people will go LNG Victory 5. I think that's a spot that people. I mean, look, you can get a rookie captain, but if you want a little more safety, what I talked about earlier is you could do something like a Weibo Gaming with Gen G, and you can get an Angel captain with Chovy, Doran. I mean, so it doesn't project
Generation G. Yeah, I think that it might be correct to go double LCK. Obviously, I'm giving away a little bit here from what I'm going to do, but I haven't made my projections yet, so I haven't actually locked in on what I want to do. But the first look, just trying to figure out what's decent to do today. I kind of want to just go Genji and Fred Brion, and hate my life when DRX smashes.
I mean, there's a lot of situations where you end up hating your life if you do this. This is like one of the lowest projected pairs that I have. I think the biggest problem that you have is that they're both projected at 22.5 kills per map.
Yes.
Both of these games. And so, I know what you said, biggest favorite, you want to go with that, but you typically,
So the biggest favorite here besides Genji is your LNG, right? The problem is you get left with support captain.
If you go with Gen G now, like, so if you feel that LNG,
but if you don't take Gen G, so here's like the cash, like the GPP winner take all. I totally agree with you. I think Gen G is a perfectly fine fade. Obviously, I'm not going to play them in most of my lineups, right? But in cash, like Gen G, just Vegas odds wise, is listed as what they were -700, which is like an 87.5% favorite. Okay, you take that and then any 50%er on this slate, you're left with a 43.5% chance of both your teams winning, right? Problem is you don't play Gen G, that percent chance of both your teams winning is slashed like crazy. Let's say you take LNG and then you take V5, for example, right? LNG is like 58, 59%, and V5 is like 50%. You're now down to a 29% chance of both your teams winning. Like a 14% chance decrease in your head-to-heads and your double-ups is brutal to deal with.
So humor me here for a second.
Sure, I'm listening.
What if you could do something? This is straight out of the playbook of some of the people that we talk about. Let's say, we're not going to play Rich, but let's say we go with a peanut captain, right? Let's say we go with a Doran top. Let's say, a team slot. I think that we can agree that even if LNG loses the series, they probably win at least one game. They don't get swept. Yeah, FPX is not sweeping. So
I'm okay with an LNG team slot.
So maybe we go with an LNG team slot, right? And then,
you're kind of forced into playing Chovy Ruler in this team.
Okay. Yeah.
Because if you're playing a Gen G main stack, you kind of need the Chovy. What, Maple? Relax. You barked when you were out there, and now you're barking in here? You're barking? Okay. All right, you crazy.
So I mean, that's not what I was going for.
All right, Alex G. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. So you're stuck here, but you can't really fill with So you're saying like a Karsa one-off. Yeah, so I'm not
with an
right. So this is the Alex G team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's
to it on absolutely destroying me. I think I'm like 3-8 against the guy, which is brutal.
But I don't think that this is bad based off of what you said. Like,
but I think it is because your probability. It does give you. Okay, so I'm actually going to play Alex G devil advocate here, and that I think that his strategy of playing players into each other is actually okay. Which I feel fucking awful saying out loud. Those are my dogs in the background. Just
all right. Hey, look, John used to do these videos, and we heard John's video or dogs. So, like, I mean, this is part of the course.
So, the problem with tonight's slate is that if you're not going to play the support captain LNG Gen G team, you're left with that low percent chance of getting a full 7 out of 7 winners, right? But if you play a 4 Gen G stack and then you play 2 players into each other, for example, you play like Karsa into, I don't even know who you'd play Karsa into on that team.
So you're just playing on. I mean, like, it's not a high scoring position. We don't have a high scoring support on this.
That's fine.
Slate. So, like, let's say we do.
If you do Karsa into on, and you play.
Let's say you do this Karsa into the team slot.
I'm okay with that, right? And then you play. You fill with like ruler. I think you have to fill with ruler if you can.
Let's go with white, and then.
So it's too sour.
Yeah, you can't do it.
Can you do? So what's ruler style? Oh damn!
Hang on, watch this.
You're good.
Let's try it this way.
Okay,
that's a little bit.
So what I'm saying is if you slam 4 Gen G players, including your captain, like we don't have to build it out, but I'm just saying theoretically, and then you play 2 players into each other, and then you play a 3rd player in a different game, you're giving yourself at least 5 winners with a 50% chance of a 6 out of 7. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to like math it out to see if it's like okay, which I'm not going to do right this second. But I think it's it's actually okay. Which, like, again, I hate saying it, but I think it's okay. This is probably not okay. The 2 and the 2 is probably not the best.
So I think the problem is, I mean, when you look at the slate and we start talking about this and why this even comes up is because you do have, like, okay, so you have this Gen G team that you want to play, but they're the most expensive team on the slate, so they're hard to fit with anybody else. You have these two kind of like toss-up games with Weibo Gaming and Victory 5, where, you know, somebody might have a strong lean one way or the other, but I think that these games, as the odds would indicate, are fairly close. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if any of these teams 2-0'd the other one. Right. And then you have this other game. I think if this slate had an additional game, you know, you've got the DRX Frederick Rion that you really don't necessarily want a part of. Right. Because that's a 50-50 game too. So you could try and do this strategy, and, you know, realistically, you could have 4 pieces, a piece from each one of these games, and you could be wrong almost in every single one of them. So I guess, though, because even if you did the 4 Gen G, like you could still end up with 2 wrong, which is the problem. But I guess even if you get 2 wrong against a team that has a 4 and a 3, that if they get one of the teams wrong, which is what you're relying on in this type of build, you're still in a better situation. It is why it works better on LCS and LEC slates, where you have 5 games and 5 games of favorites that you can pick from. You're less likely to have more than 2 wrong.
Yeah. So 1 sec. Let me see if I can. I'm gonna quickly try and.
So here's the way we can do this. We can put a Morgan top, if you want to think like Brion's going to win, just as an example. We can do a.
Here's the math part of it that I said I wanted to do real quickly. So whether or not you play a 4 into like a 4 stack of Gen G and then 2 opposing players and like a random one-off, or you play a 4-3 of Gen G and a team, you're expected to have on average 5 winning players in your lineup, with giving each like Gen G player like a 0.875 and moving from there. The thing is, while they both have an expected win value of 5 players, the floor on the players into each other is actually better. I'm not gonna play players into each other tonight. I'm just playing like I'm like considering it for the first time in my life, and it kind of sucks. But I let's do what you're saying. So you said you're gonna go throw Morgan up top.
So yeah, it does. Okay, so it does make sense to punt the top laner, but if you're punting the Shy and you're going 4 LNG, then you're. I mean, you might as well just go LNG with Weibo. I think at that point, like you might as well, because you've got your 4 LNG. You're saying that they're going to win. You're hoping that the Shy wins. Or then you go with 2 Victory 5 against the Shy, and then say either 2 are going to win or 1's going to win, and you're going to end up with 5 winners no matter what. I mean, and that's playable. I think, you're hoping for a lot in that situation, and it's playable. I mean, like that might be a good lineup. I think this one that we just constructed, though, the point is trying to get 4 Gen G players in there, because that is the one that you know, minus 800, you feel good about it. It helps your overall odds. So, Nathan, I don't know if you see it. I mean, I put it up. I've got Peanut with Morgan, Tarsa, Chovy, Ruler, Livmo, and Gen G.
Yeah, so like, and this is like, again, this is an Alex G lineup, but I don't hate it. I don't dislike it. You kind of have the floor you kind of want in your head-to-heads, double ups, where if you're playing a lot of them, then you're fine with it. If you're only playing 1 head-to-head, you're feeling a little bit worse about it. Or like 1 double up, you're playing a little bit worse about it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I guess more head-to-head wise than double ups, which is where a lot of the action actually is right now for cash games. I do regard winner take alls as cash games, but like not really, because I play them very GVP oriented because they have the same payout structure. So.
Correct. I mean, but I would say you can play it as a cash game, but you do have to understand, like most people play it as a cash game.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't think that I think the thing is you play it as a cash game, but you're playing against 2 or 3 other people that are playing it as a cash game. And so, yeah, you can go one of 2 ways. You can do it what you're talking about. And I do it sometimes where you just go the exact opposite and hope that like it's a 50-50 essentially, you versus the 3 of them. Or, you could play it with all of them and just hope that your combination works better than
it's better. Right. And I think that's the large disconnect or the disagreement that I have with a lot of people is that a lot of people play it like a cash game, and I've never thought that it's correct to. I guess at some of this lower stakes stuff, it is.
But the winner take alls, I mean, let's face it. I mean, the minimum winner take all. Maybe there are smaller ones. I just can't see them. But they're 25, they're 85, they're 100 and 267. This is like and it's weird because it's kind of unique to esports, right? Like you don't see these you don't see them in the NFL, not nearly to the same extent. You see the 267s, but
and there's not a lot of 3-mans going on in esports. So there's the 25s is the lowest stake you get, but I think it's even okay to play cash game lineups in the 25. Actually, it's less so because it's
5 people.
But I still think it's more okay to play a cash lineup in the 25 than it is in like the 5-5-5.
Well, and I think here's the other thing though is, and it depends on how you're playing, how much you're allocating different places. But a lot of times I'll reserve those contests and I'll use them as hedges against my GPP. So like if I have a huge position, let's say on one of the LEC states to start the year, I had a lot of G2, and then I put MAD in my winner take alls. Now what sucks is when your winner take all teams lose too, but that's the right team. Like somebody else was on MAD or something of that nature.
Right. I agree with that. I think I mean I play generally similar, but I also it's also like a weird situation where like sometimes with the winner take alls, like especially with like the 2 gamers. So like the other night when LGD won, obviously very good for me. But not only did it help me in tournaments and winner take alls, but in my cash games, I also leveraged it with not 4-stacking whoever their opponent was, which was the ideal build projection wise.
Mm-hmm.
And that came down to literally just Gelati being like, this team is not a big dog, and I was like, okay, bud, you know more than me. Why not? But
well, it's not just that he says it. He's got all the stats to back it up. So if you're not subscribed to his Patreon, I mean, it is a huge help to see some of those. I mean, the gold GG.
It's very.
These have stats, but he has some other proprietary stats that are more indicative that you can actually weigh. They're more in detail than even some of those sites. And for $20 a month, I mean, I wish there was a referral code because you could put EMK in there, and that would be great. But it's totally worth it. And I want to go back. One of the things that you touched on, and I don't think that people realize, because look, we dog on some of these lineups because they just look funny, but as time has gone on, we've realized that they're not always the easiest to beat in small windows, but they're not trying to beat you. Like you said, if you have 100 of them, you should be able to get enough variance amongst what other people are thinking.
Or playing
the larger slates, like 4 or 5 games, that you should be profitable, even if your ROI is only like 10%. And that might be all that somebody's looking for, is a 10% ROI. I think
that's I was talking to Ian about it the other day, and as much as I do think that I am I'm a better cash player than Alex G. I don't think he's bad. I think that he's beatable, which is why I play him every single time. Although he's beating me currently, congratulations to him. But I think that when he's playing the volume that he's playing, and so many people are taking his games because of the way he plays, he's doing pretty well. He's very unconventional, but he's long run 5 to 10%, whatever, just like total long run. He's totally a volume long run guy.
Well, not just that, but I think a lot of the people that end up playing him specifically, and some of these other I think like table stakes, Giant Squid is a guy that does that a lot too in the LCS. They'll play that, but and we've given them free advertising, I think. because when you post those lineups and then people see, oh my God, this guy plays this, like, people go and play him, and you might have a different take on an LCS. Like, look, LPL, LCK is one thing, but like an LCS slate, that's far less predictable.
Alex G and LEC LCS is like pretty okay. Like it's not bad, right? I think it's on a lot of slates it is bad, but on a majority of them it's fine. It's perfectly okay. And people come in saying like, oh, this guy sucks, like, and then they play their bad lineup because there's a lot of bad cash players out there, and they get just like, and they just take that free money. Giant Squid does, Alex G does, Table Stakes. I guess Table Stakes does it also. I realized that now that he has that Saber Sim logo. I've never looked at his lineups. I take it.
I can't remember. I think that I've seen it far less, even from those guys this year. Because I'll take a couple head-to-heads. I don't play a ton of cash, but I haven't seen it as much in like SGOG or however you say it. I don't know how you say it.
Progeny or whatever.
Goog. I don't know. Maybe it's Googs. I have no idea.
Maybe it is. It's actually just Gugs in disguise. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, it's SGoog. It's like the S tier version of himself. He hasn't been doing it as much, and I've actually seen him in like the 3-3-3 and some of these GPPs a lot more. But he's become a 4-3 bro. Like, it's kind of weird.
I think that so full disclosure, I'm a lifetime up against him, but this year is I did want to say Gratz, you're correct. So I think I'm lifetime up against the guy. But this year has been brutal.
See, I think it's been the opposite for me, is that lifetime I've had a problem, but this year I think with the exception of one slate have won. I mean, I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, he's to be fair to myself, the majority of games that I've lost against the guy have been on 2 gamers, where he's just gotten like the 4 stack that just went nuts. Like last night, I took Anyone's Legend as the 4 stack, and he took Ultra Prime. I can't win, right? Not when Elk puts up like 110 like he did, whatever he did, right? So, and also I'm playing on FanDuel a lot with him, so like the Elk captain double stack is like perfectly viable. So when Elk is his captain, and that's the favorite that goes off, then like I can't beat him.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't seem like a great slate for cash, or maybe it does. Maybe because it's so hard, some people like that aspect of it. I think I feel like
terrible lineups today.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of many times last year where like I played like Mr. Maz, and we'd have like 60 and 70 points. 60 beats 55 in a cash lineup or something like that. And that feels like you could get a lot of those today, especially because like I do think people want to play Gen G, but like look, it just feels so much better to play like Victory 5 and LNG. And I do think that there is a belief, despite what the odds are, that Victory 5 is at least within the DFS community.
No, I think I have that same bias.
And LNG too. Like I don't like, if you told me, I've looked at the odds, so I know. But if I had to pick the odds, I would think that maybe Victory 5 is like a minus 130, minus 140, minus 150, like just off the top of my head, and probably LNG the same thing. That's not the case.
Right. Victory 5 is like what, minus 110 maybe, and then like LNG is like minus 180, I think. Was it last time I checked?
Yeah, so, they're not enough that I'm like slamming either of them.
Exactly. Like what you were saying about Moz. I think Moz is like, there's like 2 players that I don't like playing head-to-heads against, and Mr. Moz is one of them. So I don't take any of his games. And he posts a lot of games, and I have the opportunity to do it, but I don't. If you're looking for a high stakes head to head guy, the guy posts like 10K head to heads on FanDuel every single night. It's not a fun waste of your money. It's not who knows if you're win or lose, but like it's not a fun game.
I'll tell you, I miss the J-Rob head to heads. I mean, he would go on streaks, but like he would go on bad streaks too, and you just scoop up all those games.
Yeah, I agree. I don't love that he's not playing too much anymore. I don't love that a lot of people aren't playing a lot of cash this year. You're really seeing not a ton of cash guys.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I've got on the slate. I mean, we ran for a little bit over an hour. I know you joined a little bit late, but to sum it up, I think that there's some really, really interesting GPP builds. I mean, we ran through them a couple here. You could do just a standard 4-3, but you can one off. Like if you wanted to get rid of Rich here, I think you can.
Yeah, I think I play a lot of every single team today. I think there's maybe one team I don't play.
I guess in GPPs, I think at least small field, I think it's okay to stay away from Gen G. I think it's okay to stay away from the Freaks, and I think it's okay to stay away from the LCK as a whole, unless you're kind of one-offing a Gen G, kind of either a team slot, or I really do like some of the builds with like a Doran one-off.
Yeah, so
where you can fit.
So I don't hate that. I do think as a whole that the books as well as the DFS community in general still view LCK versus LPL as spring 2020, where the difference was massive, and the difference is still pretty decent in pace, but I don't think they yeah, that's very right.
It's like a Jerry narrative.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a weird spot because like I think that the ownership discrepancy on your LCK teams versus your LPL teams is more than enough to play them. Especially when your two LPL games are 50-50s because you can play all the 4-3s of ADCs.
Well, and here's where I agree with you, and here's where I don't. I agree with you on a lot of the slates. We've seen it take down at least some of the smaller field tournaments where you do have these kind of toss-ups, but it's because you're almost forced into playing an LCK team to get one of those ADC captains or get a mid captain, and you're not so much tonight. And there are certain teams that I think lend to that a little bit better. I think Nongshim is one, not as a big stack, but as a small stack. And when you look at kind of the point totals that T1 has been putting up,
yeah,
at T1, I mean, look at this. Zeus has been pretty consistent, but Owner has been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Even Faker to some extent. Like picking out the right small stack there is huge. Peter, aka Effort, has been a pretty good scoring sup to give you some kind of price discrepancy. Obviously, Sandbox taking a real tough turn the wrong way. Real tough turn.
Really good first slate for the Sandbox Sharks. The Sand Sharks. Not so much since then.
I mean, the same can be said about DK though. I mean, like you had that one series, and it was also good for Gen G. But I mean, when you look at these, you just got to pick the right ones. I mean, look, this would have been a good one if you picked them here. So you've got to get the LCK team, on the right game. I just don't know if tonight is the right game for either of these teams, and I don't. I think the projections for Morgan, the projections for Umti that I have pretty good. They're based off of such a small sample size and guesses from last year and other things that you can see I have them projected pretty well, but like the dudes barely put up the points that I haven't projected for in 4 games that I haven't projected in 1.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I guess like the only thing that comes down to is like, sure, we can say definitively that it's Chovy, Ruler, and Duran. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I think Duran just like lifetime is pretty fucking good.
Well, Duran had a 90, a 70, a 70, and a 50. So yeah, I mean,
that's pretty
consistent to that extent. Yeah.
So like, I can say like pretty definitively that one of the top 2 stacks is going to be an LPL team. Like that's almost 100% for sure. Just probability wise with the game totals and with the way that these leagues play, that for sure at least one of the top 2 stacks is going to be from the LPL. Where that's basically saying like I don't really think you should play a lot of double LCK builds on this kind of slate, especially when like your LCK is your biggest favorite, so they're kind of in a weird over-owned spot. But I do think that it's relatively likely that one of the top 2 scoring teams is LCK. Because what happens like how often do these LPL games go 2-1? Where you get like 60s from your winners, 60s and 70s.
Well, yeah, I think the weird thing that you're more looking at. I don't even think it's like the Gen G team ends up being like an optimal. It's almost like the Fredit Brion DRX have like 2 marathon games that just don't ever end and go like 2 elders and
it goes 2-0.
Yeah.
And then the team, not only do they score like 30 points a game in like a marathon game and they get 80s, like but then they allow you to fit like a full stack ADC captain with one of the LPL teams, or not even allow, but just like you get something like that.
Yeah, it's like a situation where like they have a team fight at Elder and one person survives with Elder and there's no way that they can finish, and then they do it again 5 minutes. They do it 5 minutes again. 5 minutes again. Like 5 minutes,
and then you end up with a game that's like 24 to like 18, and like even if that 24 to 18, like the 24 team wins the next game like 12-3, like 36 kills in a 2-game sweep is pretty damn good.
Yeah, especially with a team like Weibo Gaming, especially with a team like FPX, that there's no surprise if these teams win this, with 12 to 14 kills based off of what they've done so far. LNG is not a particularly bloody team, although I will say that it feels like every single time LNG has been on a slate so far this year, LNG has been the optimal 4-man. Not because they score so much, just because they've been on these weird slates where teams have not scored well, and they have been, consistent with their 2-0s.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I'm also, as you can tell from my season long drafts, very bullish on this LNG team. I think they were good last year, and I think they only improved. Although Icon was a beast fantasy wise, but obviously doing B is a little bit better as a player.
And they've hit their stride. I think the big thought was that they were going to have some problem meshing at the beginning, and they did at Demacia, and they did at the beginning part of it. But I think they're past that. I don't know, man. I have a hard time quitting Weibo, man. Like, there's no reason to want to play Weibo. There's no reason to tell me. It's just I know that they.
Well, here's the thing with Weibo is that I think that generally they're thought of as like a pretty low scoring guy team. Mm-hmm. That last year they weren't.
Sometimes they were, though. Sometimes they were.
But I think that against Victory 5, it's just going to be like do on and the Shy show up. Because they'll either win you the game or just throw the game in the toilet.
I think they both played really well. I thought the Shies played pretty well the entire split. I don't think that he's done
nothing. He's done no 2020 the Shy moves.
Yeah, I just feel like last year, as an example, he just didn't care. Like, really didn't care. And so he wasn't just kind of limit testing. I mean, he knows the limits. He wasn't even trying to like outplay people. Last year, he just genuinely did not care. Like, Rookie got there so late. He got there so late. And now you're seeing how much those two guys actually meant to that team, where they were just kind of a mid-tier team, and Zune was thought of as a decent jungler, and I still think he is. I think he's in a bad situation now, but I thought the Shy, in the games that I've watched him play, he's played actually very well, completely gapped the other, top laner. And look, Rich was okay. Rich is all right. But Rich is not.
I'm not a great. Super great, just like regular esports League of Legends analyst here. Would you say that there was not a lot of questionable dives from the Shy so far? Has he not made and I'm not saying results oriented, because he obviously, like you said, has come out with a lot of these times where he's just totally gapped them. But in game, has he made questionable decisions that turned out well for him?
So
are we seeing good variance to the Shy, where he's winning these weird 1v1s that he's taking that he shouldn't be?
So I don't think I watched any of the TT series, and I watched the first game, and this game disgusted me, and I turned off the series and went to sleep. It was like on at like 2 on Saturday, and I was just like,
I hated my life.
You guys went to 8-4, like, really? And I like
the 6-13 game, I wanted to cry because
I wasn't even awake for that. I woke up, I looked at it, I said, I'm really happy I went to sleep. That would have been worse. But specifically in these games, I didn't think that he played poorly. There might have been one or two. I don't know if I caught both of these, but I know I watched all three of these games, and I especially against WE, and I didn't see anything that like was glaring.
Yeah, so that's obviously like something that I don't know, just because my skill / knowledge of the actual game is pretty much zero. I mean, like I know like the general goal, like kill your opponents, kill the dragons, take down the towers, like bust the nexus, right?
Well, so one of the things that I think works in his favor is he is far more mechanically skilled than a lot of other top laners, and he credits playing ARAM for that. So, all of us, ARAM grinders out there, you could play like the Shy one day. Apparently, that's where he learned it. He's on record as saying that. But I think where the TP change has affected skirmishes in the bot lane, it's also affected skirmishes in the top lane in the sense that he can't overextend himself and then have like a ward that's posted like behind him in the bushes, have a mid laner come in, and when he's overextended in the lane, all of a sudden now you've got a 3-on-1 he's collapsed on. It can still happen, but it really needs to happen more telegraphed, from a jungler that you're not keeping track of, because you should know where he's at, or a mid laner, again, who where he is because he's obviously not showing in lane. And so he's got to be roaming up there. You've got to have vision. So it's harder to punish him.
What is the TP? Again, like, I don't play. So
you used to be able to TP anywhere, like on any of your minions, on any of your towers, or any wards that you placed or that your teammates placed. The TP change now is that if you have TP until 14 minutes in the game, you can only TP to one of your towers. So what that means is that like if the guy's here, you can't teleport behind him and then flank him. You have to teleport onto the tower, and he's always going to have position to be able to retreat. So you're going to see some defensive teleports, but you see even less you don't even see that as much because people use that teleport far more freely to get back into lane because there's just not a lot of offensive uses for it.
Yeah, that makes sense to me at least. That makes sense because you did see a lot of those last year where they just dunked on him. He just had some TP to right next to the guy in the bushes, and then just like it's over.
Well, it could be into the bushes. It could be into a ward in the river. It could be a lot of those different things. But also, then if he overextends, and here's a byproduct of that. Let's say he overextends, and your mid laner then uses something to come and they kill the Shy, right? So then all of a sudden he needs to teleport back to lane. Now he doesn't have teleport, but your top laner does have teleport. Now you can set up a play with your jungler in your bottom lane for you to teleport down because he can't come teleport down to help. So it's not just that, but that's why you're seeing less bloody games overall, is because just a kind of a byproduct of not being able to do that.
Not being able to make these plays that give you such a big early lead.
Yeah, like in low levels, bronze, silver play really doesn't matter. People aren't making those plays, and if they do, they're terrible, and there's no type of communication. But in pro play, it was a pretty big, significant difference that you're seeing play out in these top levels. I will say that, when it comes to the ERLs, when it comes to CBLOL, these games are just as bloody as ever. So, again, I'm going to be talking about those a little bit more over the next 2 weeks as we have extra time to fill in this 8:30 time slot, because I'm not going anywhere, guys.
Perfect.
All right, but hey, do you have anything to close it out with?
I posted some head-to-heads, I think at least. So someone should come take them, so I don't have to just play against Eskog. And
posted some head-to-heads. You have an article up on Rotoballer. You listen to everything that he said here. You should be able to beat him in cash, or at least have a lineup that's unique enough that if things go your way, you win, right?
Yeah, I think you guys. I think that tonight's like if there's ever a shot to be taken at me, tonight is definitely the night to do it.
Go for Freakas. Let's do it.
Yeah. That's
the freaks win, you win. That's it, man.
Yeah, that's it.
You can go to bed by 4, probably.
Yeah, exactly. If they win, yeah, that's the thing is, if the freaks win, expect to see me litter the top of the leaderboard.
The GBBs, but you'll probably lose your cash games.
Yeah, yeah, which would be fine. But I don't even think that actually, because a lot of people are going to play the 4-gen as well. But yeah, I don't have much to say besides that. Don't be afraid to play the dogs as always. Overplay the dogs because everyone else underplays them, and that's about it.
All right, man. Well, thanks for joining me. Maybe we'll have you on later this week. I don't know, but Goog said I don't know if he said this. Maybe I said that he said this, but I think that he said he could eat a full pizza in 7 minutes. So that might be what we're looking at on
That's
Friday.
Okay, alrighty.
I'm excited for it.
Good to know. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to contribute to that or put into the Gugs Fund, where we come up with these, we buy his wings, we buy his pizza, we do these type of things. My Venmo is in the info here. All proceeds, if you mark it as Gugs, will go to the Gugs Food Fund
Foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, maybe we'll help him play some CS:GO or something, since he can never get his money from DraftKings. But other than that, thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate it, and we'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place, 8:30.
Alrighty.